evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here tonight to Flatout Racing Network's coverage of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Dirt Series as we kick things off with the Big Block 358 Modifieds. Heat number 1 about to begin at Cedar Lake Speedway. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Matthew Rodriguez. And Matt, maybe one of the shorter of the dirt tracks these drivers are going to here this season, and a slightly smaller field as well. So it's just going to be interesting to see how they decide to mix it up, as just about everybody in the field might be guaranteed a top 10.
Absolutely. Would you believe me if I told you, but this track was actually built in a swamp by a farmer, no less.
I would believe it. We were actually going over the track information pre-race. Thank you to Farmer Elmer Cook for seeing a lake and deciding a track should be made out of it. Now, another thing that we got to talk about here tonight is the points, because they have closed up. The last broadcast we did here of this series was 3 weeks ago at Weed Sport. It's closed up so much that 4 drivers are only separated by 14 points. So this should be a very interesting race here tonight. With the points as close as they are, the championship could be decided here tonight.
I mean, don't count Steve Robbins or Ryan Stillwell out yet. They're still within striking distance.
Wayne McDuff gets us underway here in the first heat. Steve Robbins will be behind him, followed by Ethan Sprague, Grant Wesley, Jay Mallory, and Brian Ordo. Those are the drivers partaking here in the first heat. I believe we're only going to have 2 heats here tonight, since only 11 drivers are scheduled to take the green flag tonight's event.
Now I'm looking at this clay surface. It's almost Jay Mallory, or actually looks like Brian Ordo may have almost gotten to Jay Mallory back there. But obviously, looking at this clay surface, seeing a lot of drivers really preferring the middle lane. We saw it in practice as well. They're kind of middle lane. Looks like right now Grant Wesley is testing out that top lane, but I don't really know if there's a dry off.
We have, as I said, 4 drivers separated by 14 points. There is actually a tie for the points lead coming tonight as well. Grant Wesley is one of those drivers in that tiebreaker situation. He's tied with Brian Hogue, who we'll see in the second heat. Steve Robbins, who right now is hounding McDuff for the top position. He is third in points, only 8 points back, and we know that points are awarded to the top 3 finishers in these heats as well.
Yes, and just again looking at the top of the standings, Brian Hogue actually hasn't gotten a win this season. Grant Wesley's slowly tracking down with his 2 wins and obviously pulled it even. Wonder if Hogue's going to get it done tonight.
We'll see, definitely has a shot at it. We know that this type of series does not have a playoff system. It's all about consistency. Obviously, trips to victory lane help in gaining maximum points, but Brian Hogue, being the consistent driver that he has all season long, has been able to get himself to the top of the point standings. As Brian Ordo back there just slammed the wall as the white flag's out, and actually I believe they are coming around. Yeah, they are coming around to take the checkered flag here. Wayne McDuff easily, handily going to win this first heat, and so therefore he will be the pole sitter for the main event over Steve Robin and Eric Sprague. That's now going to set us up for our second and final heat of the night. So we've already determined the inside of the front row. Now time to determine the outside of the front row. Todd Mallory will line up alongside of Brian Hogue, we're just talking about. Brian James, Tim DeSchwart, and Sean Kerrigan will be the 5 drivers participating in this second heat.
You know, shining the light back on Wayne McDuff. I mean, obviously got off to a really fire start to the season. 3rd place at Volusia, 2nd place at USA Dirt. Then it's almost like this season kind of just took a nosedive. I mean, 14th, 10th, managed to get back 6th, then a 17th, and then a 5th place finish at Charlotte Dirt. Ended up missing Limaland, or Limaland? Limaland?
I think it is Limaland. I think you pronounced it correctly.
Ended up missing Limaland. Obviously back here at Cedar Lake, hoping for just kind of something to get his season back on track here.
Now, Todd Mallory, it's nice to see him back in a race car. He was involved in a big wreck in the big one last night in the Tally Challenge, but he is going to be starting on point here tonight for this second and final heat. The only driver that currently has a shot points-wise for the championship, which by the way is going to be determined in 4 weeks' time, so time is running out for some of these guys, is Brian Hogue, obviously the co-points leader. Tim DeSchwart could be considered, I guess, a long shot driver. He's 53 points out, but he needs those other top 4 drivers to have some issues in at least the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Well, I wonder if any of these drivers are really just trying to wait for later off in the season, just trying to hang tight, hang tough, and then wait to maybe race 3, almost the final race, where they get into a track that's really into their element, and they kind of focus on that, see if they can kind of steal it away.
Ryan Hogue, realizing that Grant Wesley did not finish in the top 3 in his heat. He'd love to be able to gain some points on him by winning this heat, heat number 2, trying to swing around the outside of Todd Mallory. Not quite clear just yet as they head into turn 3.
I mean, obviously, as we saw tonight, these passes have not come easy, and obviously putting yourself higher in the field is going to make your life so much easier for the rest of the race.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I was noticing that back in the first heat. We're seeing it here in the second heat as well as Sean Kerrigan getting a little loose off of turn 2. Yeah, there's not a lot of passing going on, and so I think it's going to be one of those cases where it's going to be all about track position here tonight.
Well, the big key is track position, and obviously the track is going to change further on into the race. So obviously, I mean, running different lines, experimenting with different things. I mean, here's the thing. Right now, the middle line may be the fastest. When the track gets a little bit more worn in, you're going to start searching for that moisture. So you're going to start going down low. You're going to start going up high, and obviously lap traffic or even your competitors that are on the lap are going to be trying to search for a best way around them.
A little bit of contact being exchanged there between Tim DeShwart and Brian James for the 3rd position as we ride on board with the 49. Love watching the hands working the steering wheel, the counter steering into the corner, the back and forth trying to get the thing to go straight on the straightaways as that battle continues here on the final lap for the 3rd position. It looks like Brian Hogue is going to win this heat. I was going to give it to him, but Mallory makes a charge, not quite going to be able to get it, and Brian Hogue heads for pit road. Exit stage left.
I think we really nailed down that top lane has a very good exit off. It really can hold tough with the middle lane, but I'm not really sure if it can hold tight with a driver really arcing off the corner and taking that bottom lane out of the corner.
Now, a driver that went to victory lane 4 times this season, the most of any driver so far in the 358 Modified Series, Ryan Stillwell. You will have noticed it was not in the field here tonight in either one of those heats, and he was a driver that was in that 14-point range between the top 4 in the standings. The reason he's not in the field here tonight, he's actually at Bristol Motor Speedway in Bristol, Tennessee. His father is running in the Nationals this week at Bristol Motor Speedway. So I don't know if Mr. Stillwell's heat has actually taken part, has actually happened yet, if his event has happened yet, or how he did. But obviously, we wish him and Ryan the best of luck down there, as Ryan Stillwell, I believe, will be back in the car next week to try and get back into the championship picture again.
Yeah, I mean, speaking about Bristol Dirt, I know we held an event here earlier this week, I believe on Tuesday, and it got rave reviews from both sim racers and commentators alike. I mean, the track is, I think, a lot better than any of us really expected.
It really is, and looking forward to seeing other events that take to Bristol Dirt as well. As a matter of fact, I believe that NASCAR, their Pro Invitational, in a couple of weeks' time are actually going to be at Bristol Dirt. Dale Jr. climbing into an iRacing car for that.
True. And obviously, Bristol Dirt, the new Cup Dirt package, I'm a little bit entertained to see. I will admit, I'm half debating about going to Bristol Dirt in the trucks and trying to see them take that on.
So, we got an opportunity to be able to see these heats, take a little bit away from each one of them. The one thing that we kind of agree on is track position is going to be very important. Well, we got Brian Hogue, who's going to be starting up on the outside of the front row alongside of Wayne McDuff. Are we looking at those two to be the favorites, or is there somebody back in the 2nd row or 3rd row that you think could be able to get up there and pass the front row to win this thing?
I mean, obviously, I've learned not to count Grant Wesley out. I've learned that he just kind of comes back, and when you least expect it, maybe you think, hey, maybe this is the race where he's got a little bit of kind of fade here. Maybe he's not that strong at this track, but usually near the end of the race, you see that 88 just keep coming on back.
One thing I'm noticing here, though, and these drivers are out there right now testing the track conditions that there will be once we go green. The track undergoes a reset, if you will, where the grip is on the inside, middle, and outside line. Those lines will effectively go away as the 50-lap main event progresses on. But to your point with Grant Wesley, he was one of the few drivers in that first heat to go up to the top side to find some grip. And as I'm watching these guys coming off the corner, I mean, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of room for error coming off of turns 2 or 4. If you make a mistake, that wall is going to find you.
Yeah, I mean, the wall really keeps you honest here. I mean, if you're pushing too hard, that wall will just kind of tap you on the back and say, hey, remember, I'm here.
I think it'd be more than a tap. But anyway, walls can be aggressive, man.
I mean, that's
Wayne
called a
McDuff.
little bit tight off.
Okay. Is that the code name?
I mean, kind of.
I'd call it ouch. Anyway, Wayne McDuff, he's going to be the pole sitter alongside of Brian Hogue, the winner of 2 respective heats. Steve Robbins will line up alongside of Todd Mallory in row 2. Ethan Sprague, Tim DeSchwartz, row 3. Grant Wesley, Brian James in row 4. Jay Mallory, Sean Kerrigan will bring up the top 10 with Brian Ordo starting this race from the 11th position. Only 11 drivers in the field here tonight. It's going to be interesting, too, because we didn't really see a whole lot of exchanging of paint or sheet metal, if you will, in those 2 heats. A little bit of leaning for the 3rd position in Heat 2. There is every possibility, you know, that we could end up running these 50 laps under green flag conditions. And if that is the case, then these drivers, being as close as they are here on this initial start, might be the most aggressive they'll have to be all night long.
And see, that's kind of what hurts some of these drivers, where some of these drivers are really great in short bursts, and they'll plan for it and they'll, hey, on this restarts, I really got something I can kind of jump and I can anticipate this. But it hurts them on a longer run. But that really will aid some of the drivers that, hey, man, I wanted to go green. I can kind of put a good gap in between. And that's obviously what the front row is going to try to do. Get a good restart. Obviously, try to put some distance between them and 3rd.
Green flag set to fly. We are underway here tonight for the main event at Cedar Lake Speedway as Brian Hogue, who was able to get the race lead in his heat on the top side, tries to get the lead here in the main event. Wayne McDuff III says, nope,
Ooh,
the one
almost
car is
4
going to go
wide
P1.
behind.
Is that Mallory up?
Mallory's
Mallory
involved. Mallory DeSwart, I believe it also is the 71 of Ordo as well.
No caution yet, as DeSchwartz had to teleport to pit
Caution's
road.
up.
Now the caution flies as Ordo leaves the scene of the accident, and, well, I shouldn't have said anything about possibly going green the entire way, because we only made 1 lap.
I mean, realistically, Seth Dean, that was caused by almost 4 wide out of 4.
Go back and see what happened here. Todd Mallory in that 220, he was the one that was on the top side, I believe, of that 4 wide situation coming off of turn 4.
I partially think that it really almost looks like Mallory didn't realize that DeSwart was actually underneath him. I guess he didn't realize that maybe he didn't have a car that close on his left side, just kind of pinched him down and put him in a bad spot.
And it looks like, just from that camera angle, that it wasn't car-to-car contact, but more so tire-to-tire contact. Those tires exposed outside of the chassis of these machines, and it looks like because the 2 of them had their tires hit, it's what kind of sent the 220 almost up into the air.
And see, that's what really hurts. And you may remember, hey, if you're running a K&N car or an Orca car, obviously you can hit the fender before you hit the tire, but these, they're kind of pseudo open wheel cars. They can easily launch off each other. They can easily kind of knock each other into the wall. So that's kind of what happened.
Tim Short in the 49, it looks like, has already gone back to the garage area. Now, I realize that he obviously had to teleport as the green flag is back in the air, but I know he had to teleport to pit road, so he would have lost a little bit of time there. But if another caution came out, he'd be able to get back in the lead lap. Plus the fact that these drivers do have a faster pair available to them. Only 1, but still, I'm surprised that Tim DeSchwartz didn't stay in it and utilize that faster pair just in case he might have a shot of still winning this race. As another Mallory, Jay Mallory, got out of shape there off of 2.
Oh, no! Looks like the 15 of Kerrigan got a little bit of assistance, gets Mallory as well. They all keep it straight.
Oh, keep it going, but 220 and the 15 going to lose touch with at least the top 7 or so.
Man, it's a battle up here for 3rd.
Grant Wesley, Steve Robbins, and Brian Hogue all nose to tail. Actually, that could be a 4-way battle for 2nd because Hogue's not that far off the back bumper of Ethan Sprague.
There seems to be a lot of disagreements on space here.
Everybody seems to want to run that top side. Nobody wants to go down there to the inside line, and so it's all just congested. It's a big conveyor belt on the outside line.
But you know, going back to Resort, obviously kind of his issue where, like I said, if you're not having a good time at a racetrack already, maybe you're really off pace, maybe you're just not feeling this track, it's not how your style is. Obviously, you may have a faster pair. Yes, it doesn't take that long to tow, but, hey, a first lap incident, that will kind of, shoot you in the foot. And, hey, man, I, I'm just already frustrated. We've got a race later tonight. Let me just go ahead and focus on that race for later.
The biggest issue, though, as I mentioned, he was 53 points, fifth in the standings coming into tonight's race. I mean, with only 4 races left to go this season, a DNF here tonight, even despite the fact there were only 11 cars in the field, that could effectively take him out of the championship picture as early as now.
True, and maybe you're not thinking big picture at the moment. As Grant Wesley just got put into the wall, but it looks like Steve Robbins. He managed to have a nice recovery there.
Yeah, Robbins is now the only driver that's wanting to use the inside line. Brian Hope just got up into the outside wall, and he's going to get spun off the nose of Wesley. I believe that was also the 220 of the 20 rather of Jay Mallory that got involved.
Man, Ordo cannot catch a break. I think he's been involved in every incident tonight.
Car is slightly off the pace too. You can even see right there that there's something wrong with the suspension. I think he's skewed to the right.
Yeah, it looks like the suspension might be broken just a little bit.
I saw this happen. I didn't realize that there was going to be contact afterwards, but Brian Hogue had a terrible entry into turn 1. That car almost went straight, and I'm assuming with that loss of momentum getting up into the wall that he got tagged from behind by Grant Wesley.
And see, that's the big issue with some of these dirt tracks and how they have the exposed pit road, and really, there's nowhere to go. There's no nice wall to kind of bounce off of. Obviously, when he came off of 4, topped the outside wall just a little bit. If you notice, the outside wall kind of juts out right before the start-finish line. So when he tapped it, kind of set the car off the wrong way, and that's the best thing he could do is just try to avoid the barrel or try to avoid the tires, and unfortunately, just clipped them both.
Like Brian Hogue and Brian Ordo came to pit road here under this caution, and they have now utilized their only fast repairs. The other 2 drivers that were caught up in the incident were Brian James and Jay Mallory. They both continue on, did not come to pit lane as we're getting ready to go back green flag racing again. 11 laps completed, and you'll notice that we do not have caution laps count. So it is 50 green flag laps that we have to complete before we declare ourselves a winner here tonight. As they go back green, Matt, one thing I was looking when I was going back over the former winners was the fact that 10 out of the 11 drivers here tonight, they haven't won a race this season. Grant Wesley's the only former winner in the field.
Absolutely, but I'm going to tell you, whoever's driving that pace car is going to win the race. I mean, that thing is fast. That is the fastest car I've ever seen.
Well, I think there's a lot of people running to the box office right now because I don't think anybody put their wager on the pace truck.
Oh, looks like there's someone around to the back. It might be a Hogue. Hogue is in the grass.
He's going through the infield, if you can call that an infield.
I'm noticing Wesley's really pushing the issue on Sprague here. He wants that top side, and he's poking his nose in.
Got up into the wall, and those right side tires gripped the outside wall, nearly sent him into a wheelie on the stretch.
Absolutely. He's been doing that the past few laps. He's been really trying to rip that high line. Obviously, Sprague was kind of blocking, not wanting to give him the line, trying to defend his position. And I think Wesley may have just pushed the issue a little bit too much.
Getting the feeling here, too, that much like at a short track, but not necessarily with this type of vehicle, if you're going to get by somebody, you're probably going to have to move them out of the way, use the proverbial bump and run.
So here's the issue. At this track, there's not very much room to kind of negotiate. I mean, really, as Wesley taps the wall again. But there's not very much room to negotiate. And again, with the kind of the exposed tires here, it makes it very dangerous to kind of move someone out of the way. So you have to have a little bit of finesse here. It looks like Wesley's getting worked on by Robbins now.
Now, of course, this is only the first event tonight. These drivers are going to be taking to the track for another 50 laps in the late models in just a few moments after the conclusion of this race. The thing I'm noticing, a lot of these drivers running right up there against the wall, and in case of Grant Wesley, making a lot of contact with the right rear of his machine. We always harp on this because the drivers constantly harp on this. They want to preserve that rear spoiler on the late models. I don't think there's going to be any spoilers left when we get to the late model race if they run that same line that they're running here with the modified cars.
Here's the thing, they always kind of nail down.
Grant!
Oh! I think he may have kind of killed that car a little bit. And that's where the kind of the self-preservation kind of comes into the fact here. I mean, look at Hogue. Hogue is all the way back in 10th. You don't have to push that hard today. I mean, honestly, you can kind of conserve here a little bit and kind of just, even if you don't get a top 3, you've obviously gained a lot of points on Hogue. I'm not exactly sure what the strategy is.
Back to 5th, and he's going to lose that position to Brian James. Now he's got Todd Mallory looking to the inside for 6th place. Further up, battle possibly brewing for 2nd place. Steve Robbins quietly, patiently riding in the 3rd position, but making some ground on Ethan Sprague.
And realistically, Ethan's kind of had I'd say a kind of a good, steady season. I mean, it started off at Lucia, obviously 19th place, and kind of went 19th, 19th. I mean, he kept getting better, so another 19th place finish, a 17th place, 11th, a 6th, a 4th. Obviously hoping to see if maybe he can improve that to a 2nd, not even a 1st.
Definitely a contender. Last time that we broadcasted here at Weed Sport, he was up there inside of the top 5 in the closing stages of that race as Wayne McDuff. He's probably been the driver out there that's had the least to worry about so far, out in front in, if you could call it, clean air. Nobody really has put a challenge on him, and he holds almost a 2.5 seconds between himself and Ethan Sprague. So it's all down to no mistakes and no caution coming out right now if you're that one machine.
Well, again, I mean, McDuff is, I think he's kind of happy. I mean, obviously right now he's a little bit outside of the reach of the championship. He's really hoping for some bad luck from Hogue, Wesley. Obviously with Stillwell not in the field, that also affects him. And he kind of needs some bad luck to have in the Robbins, and that really could just close up the championship picture and kind of just almost give him a shot at it.
Duff has 3 top 5s this season. His best finish came all the way back at USA Speedway, a runner-up finish, and so trying to get his first win of the season. Oh, we got contact. Brian James back there. He's going to get off the nose of, I think that was Grant Wesley, down into Todd Mallory. They all somehow kept it straight, however.
Jay Mallory was trying so hard to stay out of that, he actually almost flipped over the wall.
Everybody is able to keep it together for the time being, as Grant, with that move, is going to get up to the 4th position, leaving a good battle back here, about 4 or 5 cars battling for the final spot inside of the top 5. Right now in possession of the 6 of Brian James.
I'll say easily, Wayne McDuff is just kind of taking it a bit easy. He's not running that higher line that you see a lot of these other guys running. He's just trying to nurse his lead and really just save his car, or if another competitor kind of starts running him down. I'm noticing Grant Wesley and Steve Robbins really running that high line very aggressively.
Now, I was looking here just on the possibility. I mean, this track is shorter than Bristol. It's 0.375 miles. And I was wondering about the possibility of Wayne McDuff possibly catching up to the tail end of the field and having to deal with traffic in that regard. 18 laps to go, and last place running Brian Ordo is running only about maybe a 1/10 or 2/10 slower than Wayne McDuff, and it takes them nearly 14.5 to 15 seconds to get around this track. I mean, we would have to go another 40, 45 laps before Wayne McDuff would deal with traffic.
And look at this battle for a second. Robbins is just kind of giving Sprague a run for his money. It looks like they both got around him now, but looks like Robbins got the wall.
He did indeed, right in front of Grant Wesley, who also is trying the top side against Ethan Sprague. Those two almost pushing each other through the corner there as Robbins will clear for 2nd. Wesley now moves into 3rd. This battle for 2nd still, though, going on 1.8 seconds behind race leader McDuff.
Really, man, there is such a battle here for 2nd. And just look at all 3
wide
of these
behind them, though. The Mallory brothers as well as Brian Hogue.
I'm noticing that 88's getting a bit pushy here. He obviously feels that he's quicker than the 73 and wants to make a charge at McDuff, but he can't get that preferred line. Already hits the wall.
Well, remember Grant Wesley, 2-time winner this season, the only driver in the field here tonight that has previously won this season. And he's going to bump Steve Robbins out of the way. So he is shoving him out of the way, and now he's up to 2nd. Question is, as he's also shoving the wall out of the way. The wall ain't going to move, Grant, sorry to tell you. But now we're going to have to see if he's able to clear here for 2nd place, if he's going to be able to cut down almost 2.5 seconds in 10 laps time.
Realistically, I don't know how much of a car he has left. He's been taking down that fence all night.
Hey, if you got less car, it's lighter, and that lighter means faster.
I mean, these things are already aerodynamically brick, so I mean, I don't really know how we can make it worse, but it is back.
Oh, no! Flipper! Ethan Sprague just hit the outside wall.
He's back on his wheels.
He's still going.
He's back on his wheels.
Oh,
He's going.
still going. That's got to be the greatest thing I've seen all season.
I mean,
Style points to the 017, please.
that's called focus. Never blinks.
If we went back in the replay to look, I guarantee.
Looks like Sprague is a little bit damaged here.
If we went back in the replay, I guarantee you he was still driving that car even if he was upside down.
I don't think he ever lifted.
Wayne McDuff, 7.5 laps to go. The gap has closed. What was 2.5 seconds is now 1.33 seconds. And one thing I'm noticing is that McDuff has been running that inside line pretty much ever since we started this race. Wesley's been running that outside line, and that outside line has been the preferred line, and he is coming with a lot of momentum. So now if you're McDuff, what do? You haven't tested the outside line yet.
And that's a big thing where right now, Wesley, you saw him so much in the beginning of the race just kind of pound the outside wall, just trying to learn how to run it. But right now, Wayne hasn't run it before. He's kind of doing the good strategy.
Don't block him. Grant will move you. He's proved it twice already.
Oh, no.
Oh, my goodness, McDuff.
Oh, no.
And he's back on his wheels. Caution.
No, Wayne, what happened?
Oh, my god. Well, that's what happens when you don't test the outside line. Wow.
And that's how you see a lot of hard work just kind of blow up in your face.
Oh my
That's
goodness. The driver that had led 46 laps here tonight, after that incident, drops all the way back to the last car running in 10th place.
And realistic looking here, Wesley's going to basically have almost a 2-3 lap shootout here.
Gonna have Steve Robbins right there behind him, and one thing that we've learned this season is Steve Robbins is one of the best and most aggressive when it comes down to late race restarts. As we look again at what happened to McDuff and just overstep that cushion, those right side tires are the tires that stick out the furthest of the lefts and rights, and so it grabs that wall and just shot him up. He almost rode the catch fence there through 1 and 2.
I'm looking at this restart here, and I'm telling you, if I'm Steve Robbins, I'm not lifting. I'm not lifting going into 1.
No, absolutely not.
I'm
For
kind of
Steve Robbins, you don't really have anything to lose right now. Steve Robbins is not really in the in the championship picture to take the points lead because of where Grant Wesley is running. So if he wins here tonight, that would certainly be a statement and give him a lot more of a chance with 4 races remaining.
I mean, I'm looking at this here and like, man, he's been beating me all race. He's been kind of hitting me all race. I don't know if I'm going to lift. I don't know if I'm going to give him that room.
Wesley got a good start there, though. Robin's going to go to the inside, see what he can do in 1 and 2, as it'll be 2.5 laps to go. Good battle back there for 4th place. Brian Hogue, what a comeback for the 14, as he's now 3 wide for the 3rd position with Jay Mallory and Brian James.
And obviously, he really needs this. Even if Grant Wesley wins the race, he still needs to be somewhere in contention, but he can kind of not lose that much points.
Robbins right now a 2nd behind Grant Wesley, who coming off the final corner is going to be seeing the white flag this time around. Nowhere close as Steve Robbins. Grant Wesley may not have the prettiest car in the field, but it's going to sit in victory lane. 3-time winner this season. Grant Wesley takes the checkers at Cedar Lake.
And Brian Hogue maintains at least kind of in striking distance of Wesley here. Our top 3 in points finished 1, 2, and 3.
And remember this too, Grant Wesley only finishes 2 positions ahead of Brian Hogue. Yes, he won the race, but he didn't get any special bonus points because he didn't finish top 3 in his heat. Brian Hogue was the winner of his heat, so these two could still be tied going into Kokomo next week.
That's the important thing. Really, all these drivers, at least if they have a special track marked in their schedule, they're just kind of circling like, man, I've just got to hold on until I get to this track, and as soon as I get here, I'm gone.
Tell you what, I don't know about you. I can't wait until the late model race, because if these cars were doing what they were doing here tonight with these bricks, I want to know what's going to happen when they have to take these corners even faster with the speedier late models. As we'll take a look at the finishing results from tonight's event. All of these drivers finished the race, although Wayne McDuff did finish a lap down. He had to come to pit road late, take his faster pair, and a driver who led 4/4 of this event just barely going to finish on the latter portion of the top 10.
I think someone may need to go get Kerrigan out of the lake. I saw him drive into it.
Did he really? Well, yeah, let's see if we can get our, I don't know, does Cedar Lake have a scuba team?
Yeah, swamp.
Swamp, Swamp Team.
The swamp gives it back.
Tim DeSchwart was the only driver that didn't make it to the conclusion of this race. And now let's see if we can go down and talk with some of our top three finishers. Let's kick things off with the guy who probably had the biggest comeback of the race, and that is one of our co-points leaders coming in tonight's Brian Hogue.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey Brian, it's Matt and Seth up here in the F4M booth. You got us?
Yeah.
Man, we saw that your car was strong in that heat race, able to hold off second place finishing Todd Mallory for that victory. Started up towards the front, on the outside of the front row, but then that instant put you towards the back. But a great comeback run for you. One thing that we speculated on, just based on what we saw in the heats, was the toughness it was going to be in terms of making passes. But you were able to do that. How were you able to accomplish that?
I was just capitalizing on guys' mistakes and just looking for the moisture to get some traction to get off the corner.
Now, Brian, I've got to bring up everyone's favorite talking point, which has to be points. Obviously, you and Wesley came into this race tied in points. I'm not sure if you're going to leave that exact same way. I mean, you got any tracks circled in the next few weeks that you've got your eye on?
Knoxville's a pretty good track for me, our last race. The other ones I'm not real sure about yet.
All right, so Brian, obviously, you know, we talk about these big block modifieds, how you can kind of use them as a battering ram, move people out of the way. We know that the late models that you drivers are going to be climbing into momentarily are a little bit more delicate with how short this track is and how that outside line and that outside wall tends to kind of strike from out of nowhere. How tentative do you think that late model race is going to be? Or do you think that with the speeds you guys are going to be carrying into the corners, it's going to be more about survival than anything?
I think it's going to be more of survival if you're running that top lane. If you knock that spoiler off, then you're just going to be in trouble.
All right, Brian. Well, congratulations on a job well done here tonight, working your way back through the field to finish in third place. We look forward to seeing what you do when you get into your late model car momentarily. We're going to now give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
First of all, I'd like to thank RTG for putting the broadcast on. You guys, Grant and Brian Ordo for helping admin this series, and all the great drivers that we have here.
That's Brian Hogue, third place here tonight in the 358 Modified Series, and it'll be interesting to see if maybe he'll still be co-points leader heading to Kokomo. Certainly still going to be close. Congratulations on a good run there, Brian. We look forward to seeing if we can talk with you later on tonight.
Thanks, hopefully.
User was moved out of your channel.
All right, let's get our runner-up finisher, Steve Robbins.
User was moved to your
Hey,
channel.
Steve, it's Matt and Seth up here in the F4M booth. You got us?
I got you.
And you're sitting there P2 on that final restart with 3 laps to go. We know that you were one of the few drivers late in the race to try that inside line. What little more do you think you needed to be able to get Grant at the end?
A bigger bumper. There wasn't much down bottom. I mean, it was tighter down there, but there wasn't any speed. Through the middle, it was decent, and then it kind of faded away. So if you can't get around Grant when he's on top, you're not going to get around him.
I mean, I've got to ask you because we saw it all race. I mean, obviously Grant was kind of pushing you throughout that race. I mean, you ever kind of get tired of it, or?
You know, with Grant back there, I really don't feel him. I kind of block him out because I know he's back there and I know he's faster, especially on these tracks that you can run the high side on. But no, when I got loose, he got into me, but I didn't feel him get into me. I thought I hit one of those bumps on the top side and got loose. So I really don't pay attention to who's behind me because I got to concentrate on the guy in front of me and figure out how I'm going to get around him.
You know, we were watching the racing here tonight. We were kind of wondering how were you going to make a pass because there wasn't a whole lot of passing that went on in the heat races. It kind of seemed like the answer was given loud and clear that if you were going to pass somebody, you had to move them out of the way. You guys are going to be climbing into these late models here. I mean, is it going to be the same type of strategy to get around somebody, or are you going to have to approach passing somebody differently since these late model cars are a little bit more delicate in terms of when contact is made?
I think with these new setups and everything, the late models are going to be a little racier. These modifieds seem to tear up the track quite a bit, which makes them rough. But I think the late models you should see some good 2 and 3 wide racing with them.
Well, Steve, you came into this race 8 points out of the points lead. A second place finish will still keep you in the hunt with 4 races remaining. So, congratulations on a solid outing. We look forward to seeing if you can follow this up with a good run in the late models, maybe find victory lane. We're now going to give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
I want to thank you guys for putting on the broadcast, RTG for putting on the races, and all the guys that I race against. It's a top-notch crew that we race against. It's clean, it's fun, and you can't beat them.
At Steve Robbins, second place here tonight at Cedar Lake in the 358 Modified Series. Once again, congratulations on a great run, and hopefully we'll talk to you later on here tonight. Hopefully, maybe in victory lane here in the late model race.
Thank you. I hope so.
User was moved out of your channel.
Well, the only driver that came into tonight's field with a victory, he had 2 previously. He's going to be your race winner for the 3rd time this season. We go down to victory lane to talk with Grant Wesley.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey, Grant, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Hey guys, I got you.
Well, man, I know you're still celebrating down there in victory lane. Momentarily, you're going to have to climb into a late model car. I've seen you do it before where you've swept a weekend. Can you sweep it here tonight?
Well, I'm feeling pretty good about it. We ran this track once earlier this season, and my entire season's been a little hit and miss. But when we ran here, I swept the late models and the modifieds in. So it's a newer track on the service, and I seem to like it.
So, I mean, Grant, buddy, pal, I mean, do you have any plans to take that wallet to dinner tonight? I mean, you were just kind of tearing it down.
Yeah, I know. I absolutely use and abuse that poor thing. It got the best of me a couple times, though. It almost owed me.
Now, one thing that I remember in a lot of interviews we've had with you, Grant, is when we talk about heading into the late model race, the thing you always say is preserve that rear spoiler. But everybody seemed to be running the top line here with these 358s. And we know the late models are going to be faster and you're going to carry more speed into the corners. So is that rear spoiler a moot point tonight? Or you're not even caring about it?
I mean, late in the feature, there's going to be a bunch of grip up there next to the wall in 1 and 2. But that's one thing. So in the modifieds, 1 and 2 was pretty much hammered down. 3 and 4 was really technical. You really had to kind of lift and kind of diamond that corner to make it work. But back to the late models. The spoiler is important. This is a shorter track, but with the amount of grip that's up next to that wall, I'm still going to be up there, and I'm sure you're going to see some spoilers in the fence. But ultimately, whoever has the best spoiler ultimately has the best car, and I don't think there's going to be too many good spoilers.
All right, well, Grant, you came in tonight co-points leader with Brian Hogue. You finished 2 positions ahead of him, didn't gain any points in the heat race. So we're expecting the points are still going to be close heading into Kokomo. But first things first, we look forward to seeing if maybe you can complete for the 2nd time this season the weekend sweep at Cedar Lake in just a few moments. We're now going to give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, I just want to thank the group of guys that run with us here on Friday nights. That it's been an awesome season. We've had some really great turnouts this season, and it's all thanks to them. I want to thank the owners here, Terry Bauman, Sean Prime, and David Cannon, for giving us the opportunity to host iRacing events under their name, and giving us a great place to race. I'd like to thank my fellow admins, Brian Hogue and Brian Ordo. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to put this thing on, and appreciate all their help. I'd like to thank you guys for doing the broadcast. I'd like to thank my friends and family for watching, and my girlfriend, Brittany.
Grant Wesley, he's your winner here tonight for the 2nd time this season in the 358s at Cedar Lake. Look forward to seeing if he can complete the weekend sweep for the 2nd time this season. Best of luck to you, Grant. Congrats on a job well done, and maybe we'll talk to you later on after the late model race is over.
Sounds like a plan to me.
User was moved out of your channel.
And we are currently in the process of getting everything swapped over as the drivers are preparing to get into those late model cars. But, Matt, this track, it is a tough track for these drivers here tonight. And those are in the cars that are most durable. Now they're going to be getting into lower downforce, faster cars. And I don't know. If I were climbing into one of these things, I'd be scared to death.
That's the thing. It goes from, hey, just these cars are tanks to, man, these cars are paper. That's the big change for these drivers where instead of having those little mess ups and, hey, it'll all buff out, unfortunately, these late models don't buff out.
I'm certainly hoping that these cars are not paper, because if they fall into that little pond in the middle of the track, they will tear apart. But nonetheless, we are going to step aside for a quick commercial break, get everything swapped over, and then get ready to bring you another 50 laps here tonight at Cedar Lake Speedway as the late models get ready to take to the track. Can Grant Wesley pull off the weekend sweep for the second time this season? We'll find out. Don't go anywhere. Flatout Racing Network's coverage of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Dirt Series continues right after this.
Welcome, race fans. This is Paul Page, the voice of IndyCar.
We welcome you back here to Cedar Lake Speedway as we continue on our coverage of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Dirt Series, getting set now for the Late Model Series here, Season 5 of the Dirt Late Model Series, and we're getting ready for our first of two heats. Steve Robbins, who is second in the points, trying to cut in a 20-point deficit between himself and the defending winner of this race from earlier this season, Grant Wesley, lines up alongside of Todd Mallory. Trevor Giroux in the 75. First time we've seen him on track on an FRN broadcast. Will be alongside of Jay Mallory. And then Adam Huggins and Ethan Sprague will complete the third and final row for this first heat race.
Absolutely. And you can almost say, I mean, kind of out of the frying pan back into the fire. I mean, just looking at these points, it's still close. Right now, Wesley's got a 20-point lead above Robbins and Hogue. But, I mean, really, the door is still open for anyone to kind of bust in there and take the points lead.
Green flag in the air, and while Wesley may have the points lead and be the defending winner of this race, Steve Robbins was the winner of the last late model event back at Williams Grove. So
and
the
look
momentum.
at Giroux attack the bottom.
And he's going to pull alongside of Mallory at least.
There's a little bit of extracurricular activity in the back, but it looks like Giroux might actually manage to make the bottom line work here on Mallory.
Wow, look at how unsteady Jay Mallory in that 20 car is coming off the corners. He's going to make contact there with Ethan Sprague.
And there is not a lot of give and a whole lot of shove, but I mean, we remarked about this earlier in the pre-race, where, I mean, these cars almost look toy-sized. I mean, the kind of cars to the track, I mean, the track looks toy-sized with these cars on them. It really makes it hard for a lot of the 2-wide, 3-wide passes that we've seen.
And just the way that these cars are built in relation to the big block modifieds that we saw earlier on tonight for the modifieds, it seemed like it was more difficulty of getting the car to turn to the left off the corner, like it wanted to go straight up into the wall. The trouble it seems like there is for the late model cars is the ability to counter steer that car back straight on the straightaways. That thing still wants to stay pointed left when you come off of turn 2 or turn 4.
That's the big issue. And really, I'm seeing these cars, and it's just, I'm noticing a lot of these guys are not attacking the wall as heavily as they did last race. And obviously, for very specific reasons, we don't want to damage the car, but that really puts a big question mark on how far will people push to go up to the higher lines.
But remember when we talked with Grant Wesley earlier on tonight after he won the modified race, he said you're going to have to go up there at some point in the latter portion of this late model race to find that grip, because there will be none on the bottom at the conclusion.
And as Adam Hugman's just decided to come in, maybe get a fast repair, just repair the car a little bit. He has been in the wall a few times, but that shows you really how fragile these cars are. And I mean, they really can take some damage if you hit the wall enough.
Robbins just took the checkered flag, so he will be starting on point for the 50-lap main event. Trevor Giroux and Todd Mallory going to complete the top 3 as Steve Robbins now brings his car to pit road. So task number 1 done for Steve Robbins. Going to gain himself some bonus points here for winning this heat, and going to hope that Grant Wesley doesn't gain any bonus points for finishing in the top 3 in this second heat, as Wesley will be alongside the front row with pole sitter Brian Hogue, Brian Ordo and Sean Kerrigan in row 2, and then another driver that's making his first start here on Flatout Racing Network, Trent Verstraeten, alongside of Wayne McDuff, who's trying to have a little bit of redemption from the heartbreak late in the big block modified race earlier on.
You know, I was wondering if you're going to throw some spotlight on him. I remember hearing him in pre-race, said he wasn't very confident with the car. He was kind of worried about some teething issues getting started, but obviously he kind of got convinced and, hey, come run with us. I mean, get some redemption. Definitely hoping for a strong run for him tonight.
How soon does he test the outside line, do you think? Because that was his Achilles heel back in the modified race.
True, but I could easily say he probably has the most experience of that inside line on the field.
That's true. No doubt about it. The shorter way around the racetrack. These drivers here in the second heat are running on the track conditions left behind by the first heat, so there isn't nearly as much grip available to them when they start this 8-lap shootout as there was to the other 6 cars in the previous heat, which may end up leading some of these drivers to try that top line here in the second heat.
Well, I got to ask, I mean, does that really put you in an advantage knowing the track will do later in the run?
I would think so. Absolutely.
Would that put you at a disadvantage for earlier in the race?
No, I think it puts you at an advantage for if we go into a long green flag run of knowing just how much grip really is up there on the top line should you choose to go up in that area in the main event.
And I saw Order on that start. Order was expecting a lot more slide than what he got, and he got a lot more traction than he bargained for.
Gonna move into this third position though as contact between the Bryans, and
Oh, there
Ordo's
goes
gonna
Ordo.
spin it into the inside wall.
No caution yet. Looks like the 15 of Kerrigan's in the wall spinning around McDuff as well as Verstraeten.
And then there were two.
Spinning.
There is no cautions in these heats, so you just got to keep your foot in it, and that now has it a mano-a-mano, Grant Wesley versus Brian Hogue for this heat win.
That's the thing. Hogue obviously wants to get by him. Again, you want to get the max point state possible, and that really starts out for the heats, making sure your competition's behind you. And Wesley kind of wants to set a point. You see Wesley hit the wall. I'm seeing that back end get a little bit bent.
Knocking down the wall with the right side of his machine. He did the same thing with his modified car earlier on tonight, but those type of cars can take a beating like that. Usually these late models not so much, as Brian Hogue will clear for the top position. We'll see if he can hold off Grant Wesley for these final 3 laps.
A takeaway we can easily take from these heats has to be the fact that Wesley was really pounding the outside wall and really kind of attacking the outside lane. And he did that with a smaller and thinner car, and he could really kind of shove his nose in there and kind of fight for the position. But I'm noticing with these modifieds, there's really no room, there's no give. So if he wants to make a pass and the other competitor is taking the highest lane, he's going to have to start looking low. He's going to have to start looking elsewhere.
He took a look there for a possible slide job through 1 and 2. Now on the final lap, let's see if he drives it deep, coming to the checkered flag. He is there, but Hogue's going to have the top line, and much like it happened in the late model heat, Brian Hogue is going to take a heat victory here with the late models.
Look at Wayne McDuff. Wayne McDuff managed to finish top 3.
There he is, just now coming across the start-finish line with Sean Kerrigan, Brian Ordo, and Trent Verstraeten behind him. So that means that your front row is going to consist of Brian Hogue to the outside of our Heat 1 winner, Steve Robbins.
That's the thing. Right there and there, we really saw the characteristics of the race kind of change. Obviously, what we saw previously with the big block modifieds, the 358s, we saw that really every line was workable, and hey, you can kind of beat and bang and get your way to get around these cars. But here, that kind of sets up a whole different kind of chaos here, because passing isn't easy at this track, and it's just got made harder by how fragile the cars are.
I want to go back to something we observed in the not the late model race, but in the modified race. We know that you described them as bricks racing around the track, and thusly you can kind of use them as a weapon, if you will, to move other drivers out of the way. The front end of those cars a little bit more blockish. These late models, though, it's almost kind of like a shovel. You get up underneath somebody, you're probably going to lift them off the ground. I'm not necessarily certain that you can use your race car to move somebody out of the way like we saw happen in the modified race earlier on tonight.
I kind of hearken these cars over to the NASCAR Gen 4 cars, where, realistically, if you saw a problem in your path, you could easily just pick it up and move it out of your way. This is almost an amplified version of it, but those front ends are, while they look strong, they are quite weak, and if you drive up underneath another car, you're going to get some damage on the front end, and that's really going to affect the aerodynamic properties of these cars, which, hey, even though you're sliding, aerodynamics mean a lot.
Now we had, I'm trying to remember if it was 2 or 3 cautions in the modified event. I think we might see a couple more than that here in the late model event. And the only reason why I'm assuming that is just based on the handfuls that some of these drivers had with their race cars in the heat races. I think if we end up having cautions here in this 50-lapper, it's going to be more so of drivers having difficulty keeping their cars under them, especially on the straightaways, rather than drivers leaning on each other battling for position.
I'm currently noticing in practice, a lot of drivers seem to be getting a bit more traction than they expect. Obviously, I looked at Verstraeten and also Jay Mallory, and they don't seem comfortable with the track, and they're expecting it to slide a lot more than it is, and it's just kind of straightening out on them.
Now, we really didn't see anybody in those 2 respective heats run right down on that inside line, and a big reason for that is especially talking about the front end of these race cars, if you go down there, there actually are, I don't know if it's some tires that are sticking up there down on the bottom of the racetrack or some rocks, or there are some type of barriers down there. And if you hit that with that shovel-like nose, it's going to send your car up into the air, cause a lot of front end damage.
Really, the only guy that I really saw attacking the inside has to be Trevor Giroux. And I will say you're perfectly right about that. That's pretty much little rubber tires placed right at the edge of the apron. to really prevent you from overrunning the track, kind of taking out the grass, because no one likes repelling grass. So that's really going to kind of hammer these drivers. And hey, if it comes down to a time where they really want to dig deep and go low, they've got to be careful.
Time to grid up here. 12 drivers will be taking the green flag here tonight for race number 11 of the RTG Dirt Late Model Series. Of course, the defending winner of this race is Grant Wesley, who won the modified race earlier on tonight. Grant Wesley actually, when both of these series were here at Cedar Lake Speedway earlier on this year, swept the race weekend, so he's looking to do that for the second time in a row. A couple of other drivers that we need to highlight as well that could make a late season charge for that championship. We mentioned that Steve Robbins is 20 points back behind Grant Wesley. Brian Hogue, who is starting on the outside of the front row, he's third in points minus 26, and he's not in the field here tonight, but Tim DeSchwart could have very well still kept himself in the championship picture. He was only 34 points back coming into tonight, fourth in the standings.
True. But I mean, still looking out the field, there's a few interesting names here that I'm kind of picking out. Obviously, Grant Wesley, winner of last race, he's going to be strong. Brian Hogue, he really kind of showed his muscle here in the heat and kind of showed and demonstrated what that damage on the right rear can do to a car.
Now, in the modified race earlier on tonight, only one driver of 11 that took the green flag had formerly won a race in that series. That was Grant Wesley, and he went on to win that event. Only two drivers of our 12 machines tonight are former winners this season, Grant Wesley and our pole sitter, Steve Robbins. So the odds are in favor of a first-time winner this season, but we'll have to see what Robbins and Wesley have to say about that, as here we go. 50 green flag laps to run here tonight at Cedar Lake as the green flag is out and we're underway.
Pretty even start by the front two, but I'm noticing a little bit of chaos there in the back. Someone hit the tire barriers. Looks like Jay Mallory may be going around.
I think he kept it straight, but he was certainly pointed towards the inside wall off of turn 2 as the battle's going to be for second. Brian Hogue looks down to his left, and that is Trevor Giroux trying to make the bottom line work.
Yeah, I was going to say in pre-race, but Giroux is really who I have my money on. Looks like someone took down the outside wall. That may be McDuff.
That was actually Brian Hogue in the 14. Dropped from second back to fifth because of it.
I mean, obviously, he saw what that damage did to Wesley here in the heats. He has to be looking at that right rear, hoping that there's not too much damage.
Battle behind them for fifth. Hogue dropping back into the clutches of Todd Mallory. Up ahead, Trevor Giroux and Grant Wesley. They're duking it out for second. And, you know, we talked pre-race and we talked towards the latter portion of the modified race about the rear spoilers for these cars, just to kind of explain to people why that rear spoiler is so important. When you run up there on the top side trying to search for grip late in this race, that rear spoiler actually allows for extra downforce, allows you to actually gather the car back up as loose as it is off of the corner. If you've got any damage sustained, that doesn't exactly help you in terms of that downforce and really could hurt your corner exit, as we're going to go 3 wide for the lead here, Matt.
Absolutely, and just to follow up on what you were saying, I mean, here's the thing, these cars are meant to go sideways, but obviously you have to have a little bit of control over sideways, and you take away that spoiler, pretty much just on ice. I've noticed Steve Robbins really been kind of flirting with that wall these last few laps.
Definitely has. I think what he's trying to do is just make sure that Grant Wesley can't find a lane to his outside, especially on corner exit. He knows Wesley's going to want to hug that outside line practically up against the wall, and he's just forcing Grant Wesley to have to try something different. Wesley, on the other hand, can't really think about a slide job because he's still got Trevor Giroux that's looking to his inside.
Absolutely, Drew's not making life easy on Wesley here. And that's really what's going to be a lot of difficulty here is we've seen that Wesley's not very good at almost patience. He always wants to go, and that's honestly hurt him more than it's helped him. And especially with these cars, a lot of patience is required.
Talked about the fact that Wayne McDuff had a little bit of apprehension of getting into a late model car here tonight, but he finished third in his heat race, and he's holding down the 4th position.
I mean, let's not forget he probably would have finished top 3 in the big block modified race.
Easily.
I'd say if he didn't have that mishap with the outside wall. Not to mention, I'm looking at that right rear on McDuff's car right now, and that right rear is a bit bent in. Not seeming to affect him too much.
Ethan Sprague and Todd Mallory behind him with a good battle for 6th place. Brian Hogue about to fall back into this group, and you've also got Brian Ordo up on the outside in the 71. So you got about 4 or 5 cars all in the vicinity battling for a spot inside of the top 5.
And realistically, that's the fun zone. As you see, Wesley almost got a run on Robbins.
It's the fun zone depending on what situation you're in.
I mean, if you're at the front of that pack, hey, it's a blast. If you're at the back of the pack trying to cut through, as it looks like Verstraeten might have tapped the wall. Actually, that may have been McDuff.
Also race leader then, Steve Robbins got up into the outside wall, trying to hold off Grant Wesley, who will clear and take the top position. So Grant Wesley didn't
not that
go
easily.
to the front until 46 laps into the modified race. 15 laps in, he's out in front in the late model race.
Man, Robbins is not going to make his life easy. He's going to remind him that, hey, I'm still here.
Absolutely. Steve Robbins qualified on the pole, winning the first heat race tonight. And of course, as we mentioned too, this is your top two in the point standing, separated by 20 points. So if Steve Robbins is going to make a charge for the championship against Grant Wesley, it has to happen now, as he ran rather low down there. And I actually, I'll correct myself. I thought that those tires down there sticking out of the track would cause an issue with that lower nose. Looks like just barely the underneath of the car clears those tires through the corner.
I was watching Giroux go through one of those corners, and I did notice his suspension actually did clip one of the tires, so I'm kind of curious if it hit one of those tires at speed, if it's really going to kind of affect the suspension.
Straighten there in the 088, trying to look to the outside of Wayne McDuff. It's a nice run there out of turn 4, and this may be the closest battle towards the front. Behind them, Ethan Sprague and Brian Hogue, they almost made a little bit of contact.
Absolutely, and just kind of looking for Straighten. He's had a pretty good, solid run. Obviously, came into the series at Lima Land, managed to put in a good 5th place finish. Williams Grove, good 6th place finish. He's running about par for the course, hoping to improve.
Yeah, he's one driver that has really been gaining in the point standings because, as you said, a limited number of starts and passing a lot of other drivers that had a limited number of starts. Last week, after a solid outing at Williams Grove, he jumped up 7 spots in the standings, now 17th overall after 2 starts this year, 1 top 5 and 2 top 10s.
Absolutely, just that's kind of momentum that you need to get a little bit held back on tracks. It looked like Sprague's trying to take on McDuff here, but everyone's running that same problem, is that the other guy's always running the line that you want.
Now, it's interesting because we saw, just about everybody in the field about this point of the race in the modified event running right up there against the wall. We've got a couple of drivers that are up there running the outside line, but most of them are running either the inside or, more preferably, it seems, that middle groove.
I mean, you got to think is obviously the track is going to move up a little bit, and kind of its wear and kind of how comfortable it feels. But a lot of these guys, I mean, I'm going to tell you, Wayne McDuff for certain, I don't know if he really wants to flirt with that top lane after what happened last race. I expect him to be a purely low lane around mid lane guy.
Well, so far, he's doing exactly that. That car has really not ventured up into the second lane at all. He has run the bottom of the racetrack since we started. He's been able to keep himself up inside the top 5 until just now. Ethan Sprague is going to, around the outside, take away the 5th position, and now McDuff actually sends it into turn 1 and tried that outside line. Didn't get up into the wall, as he's trying to see if maybe, just maybe, he can run a slightly more defensive line, and as we've seen so far, pretty much the faster way around the racetrack.
Absolutely, and you saw Brian Hogue back there. It almost got contact from McDuff. But Brian Hogue, obviously, he had that contact earlier in the race, kind of got marred all the way back to 7th place, now 6th. It's going to be kind of a curious thought to see if they can get a caution, if he's going to turn and take it down pit road and use a fast repair.
Yeah, so far, 29 laps, now 30 laps in the books. No caution has come out yet, and because of that, Grant Wesley is going to have to start dealing with traffic. That is Sean Kerrigan, last car running, last car on the lead lap, 12th place, that's about to get put a lap down.
Ooh, and Kerrigan's running Wesley's line a little bit. That's definitely going to make him a little bit upset. He can't get that great run off the corner. Not going to affect him too much.
Going to move out of the way there of race leader Grant Wesley, and only about 8 car lengths before Grant gets up to the next car, the 20 of Jay Mallory.
Kerrigan ended up hitting the wall out of 2.
That'd be so difficult. I would have to think if you are a car that's slower than the race leaders and trying to get out of their way to find a lane to allow them on by without wrecking your race car. You saw him swing way up wide there, trying to figure out which line Steve Robbins in the 073 wants.
Here's the biggest issue for some of these lap cars. They're running the line that they feel most confident and most comfortable in. But obviously, usually the line that you feel most confident and comfortable in, that's usually the fast lane, and they want you out of their way for when they get to you. So obviously that forces you to run a lane that you're not familiar with, run it a little bit differently than you're not used to, and that ends up catching the wall, certain things like that. Now also, it's kind of the mind games here of, hey, I want to let him by, but I can't afford to lose any more spots, because the last thing I want to do is get freight trained by the entire pack, and eventually I'm going to have Wesley back on my back bumper.
Second fastest car on the track right now is that 017 of Ethan Sprague. Drivers around him, Steve Robbins, Trent Verstraeten rather, and Trevor Giroux, they're all running the bottom. Sprague is up there on that top line, and he is making forward progress. He got around Trevor Giroux for 4th place, and you see he's only about 4 car lengths off the back bumper of Verstraeten for 3rd.
Absolutely, and Verstraeten is kind of having a really good time. I don't see any damage on that car, at least not from my camera angle. So he's honestly kept it a bit clean. That's definitely going to help him a little bit later in this race, as we saw multiple cars have pretty much bent in right rears.
Grant Wesley, he is gone. The interval right now between him and Steve Robbins, over 4 seconds, 4.3 officially that last time by, but there you see the traffic he's going to have to deal with. Todd Mallory in the 220, and just up ahead of him is the 16 of Adam Huggins, who right now is in the 9th position.
Absolutely. And one guy who's got my eye here at the moment is Brian Ordo. I mean, he didn't have a fantastic heat, obviously got caught in that giant accident, but has been kind of running about midfield, been pulling some competent laps, just nothing that's setting the world on fire.
Yeah, obviously Brian Ordo is not going to be in the championship picture. He came into tonight's race 74 points behind Grant Wesley. However, there are still positions in the points to be gained, and in the case of Brian Ordo here tonight, due to the fact that Michael Massey was not in the field to take the green flag, he will at least be moving up to the 5th position in points when these drivers head to Kokomo next week.
As I'm looking here, Verstraeten is really kind of religious on that bottom line, trying to get a little bit of a run on Sprague, but Sprague's got such a drive out of the corner on that high line.
Battle side by side for 5th. Trevor Giroux still on that inside line. It has not helped him in terms of picking up positions. He's lost 2 spots in the last 20 laps and about to lose a 3rd, as Brian Hogue will swing around and move into the top 5.
And see, Hogue is kind of playing that dangerous game because he kind of ran Giroux a little bit down the turn 3. That's kind of a risk versus reward strategy. And obviously, hey, you're forced them to have a much shallower entry, which obviously hurts their exit. But the problem is you could also force them in a position where they think they don't have enough room. They're going to start leaning on you a little bit, and then 2 cars come together, and we already know how that ends out.
Brian Ordo took a look there on Wayne McDuff, got a little loose there on a turn 4, loses some ground, as this is the battle for the 7th position. And for the first time tonight, really saw 2 drivers that wanted to run the inside line. Usually we see drivers blocking each other run the outside line, but got really close between those 2 and is going to again as they're both running the lower ray around the racetrack.
Absolutely. We're seeing Wesley's having some issues around some traffic here.
Oh, he's catching up to these 2 actually.
Yeah, that's definitely gonna put a little bit of damper on him. He's got about a 5-second lead, so it's not gonna affect him too much if he has to wait behind him a lap or 2. But if that drags on, that's definitely gonna shorten him out a little bit.
Well, the good news, 2 laps to go, 1.5 here on the back straightaways, so he may not even have to worry about them. Over 5.5 seconds back to Steve Robbins, and we will run clean and green here tonight for the 11th race of the season. Grant Wesley through the final couple of corners. He's completed the weekend sweep at Cedar Lake Speedway for the 2nd time this season.
Oh,
Wesley crosses the line to win.
Verstraeten into the middle corner. Not enough.
Ethan Sprague's going to hang on to 3rd place over Trent Verstraeten. It was about a little over a 1/10 of a second between those 2 for the final podium spot at the start-finish line.
Boy, he sent it all the way on the back.
Grant Wesley with the victory. Steve Robbins will finish in 2nd.
Second once more.
Yeah, 2nd once more. 2nd in points. 2nd here tonight. I
Definitely
don't think he would feel that badly about a 2nd place finish as long as it wasn't the 88 that finished ahead of him.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it keeps him within range of Wesley. Really, the biggest shot has to be to Hogue here, and Hogue only clawed back to her 5th place finish. So And that's really going to hurt him in points.
Certainly is. Came in 6 points behind Steve Robbins, 26 behind Grant Wesley. The problem here for Steve Robbins, you're right, keeps him in the hunt. The issue is there's only 4 races remaining in the season, and so time is rapidly running out for Steve Robbins. It's getting to a point where he needs a big chunk of points in one of these races to be able to make it a championship battle when these drivers get to the season finale at Knoxville in about 4 weeks' time.
Absolutely. And just kind of, it gets you a little bit in panic mode of, hey, I mean, what if I finished better at this track? What if I did better at this? What if I managed to win a heat here? It gets your mind kind of thinking, and that's what really gets you in a hole of you're kind of over worrying, kind of worrying about things that you have no control over.
We take a look here at the finishing results. 8 drivers finished on the lead lap. We had lap down machines because, as stated, all 50 laps were run under the green flag. And I'm sitting here kind of wondering what happened, because I would have thought this was where we would see the cautions with how unsteady the cars seemed to look in the respective heats. You know, those modifieds looked a little bit more stable, and yet we saw the caution wave at least 2 times. I think it was 3 times in that one. So, I mean, what was the difference here that had these drivers be able to still gather their race cars back up despite the slipping and sliding we saw in the early portions of the race?
I don't know if it's blind luck or perseverance.
We'll chalk it up to, I think we'll chalk it up to both. It's a combination of both. I don't know what the percentage is between the two, but we'll chalk it up to both. Let's talk to some of these drivers here that had solid outings here tonight. Let's kick things off with Ethan Sprague, as he'll pick up a podium here tonight at Cedar Lake.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey Ethan, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us? Looks like we might be having a little bit of difficulties.
Yeah, I'm here.
There we go. We've got him. Ethan, man, a great run for you here tonight. 3rd place. We saw you make up a lot of ground in the second half of this race up on the top side. If you'd had a little bit better starting track position here tonight, do you think you could have been up there and been in the hunt for this victory?
Yeah, I mean, I was catching Steve Robbins, I think it was, and tried a few new things, and the top was working out pretty good.
So, I mean, I got to ask you, when you saw Verstraeten send it in the final corner, I mean, got a little bit worried there?
Yeah, I just dove to the bottom, and I got him, so it's all good.
Now, Ethan, we saw you take part in the modified race earlier on tonight as well. Obviously, 2 entirely different cars, 2 entirely different approaches to this track. In terms of those 2 cars, which was the easier one, first off, in terms of handling, and secondly, in terms of being able to set up and complete passes?
The easier one to handle was probably the modifieds, but the easier one to pass was definitely the late models, so.
Well, Ethan, a great run for you here tonight. Congratulations on a 3rd place performance here under the lights at Cedar Lake in these dirt late models. We're now going to give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Just thank you to all my sponsors on the car, you know. The car was really good tonight. Thank you.
That is Ethan Sprague, P3 here tonight at Cedar Lake. Let's see if
User
now
was
we
moved out
can
of
get
your
our
channel.
2nd place finisher, the pole sitter for tonight, Steve Robbins.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey, Steve, it's Matt and Seth up here in the booth again. You got us?
I'm here. I got you guys.
Man, a solid outing for you here tonight. Your car was strong in your heat race, strong at the start of tonight's event, but then we just started to see the gap between you and that 88 grow and grow. What was there a little bit more that you needed out of your race car to keep with Grant?
I needed a little more power on the bottom. I could stay pretty even with him if I was running the bottom, but then I slowly started losing ground because it wasn't getting out of the corners enough. So I moved back up to the top, and then he was just gone.
I mean, Steve, I got to ask. I mean, obviously, 2 second place finishes tonight. I mean, what's your plan for going forward?
More practice, I think. So I got to be able to run the top. I won last week at Williams Grove, and I thought I had a good chance here tonight, and it just didn't turn out that way.
Well, Steve, you've obviously still got the momentum on your side. Your last couple of weeks have been really, really good. But, you know, as Matt said, a second place here tonight, and it's behind the driver you're trying to run down for the points lead. Time is rapidly running out with only 4 races remaining. Is there any one of those 4 races you kind of got circled as a place where you can actually gain a big chunk of points to actually make it a championship battle in 4 weeks' time?
Anything's possible. I'm not sure where we're at the next couple of weeks, but if it's a smaller track, I think I have some momentum on my side because Grant can't run the top on most of those.
Oh, we look forward to seeing down the home stretch if you are able to close in on him. But solid outings for you nonetheless here tonight. Second place finish in the modified, second place here in the late model. So congratulations on great performances. And we're going to turn the microphone back over to you, let you do some more shout outs.
Same shout outs. RTG for putting on these races. Great group of guys. You guys for broadcasting. And that's about it. Just keep her going for the rest of the season.
That's Steve Robbins. 1 week after going to victory lane, he follows it up with a runner-up finish here tonight at Cedar Lake. Congrats on a great run there, Steve, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you, guys.
User was moved out of your channel.
All right, well, I'm sure he was able to find his way back. He was there earlier on tonight. He's in victory lane. Let's talk with Grant Wesley.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey, Grant, it's Matt and Seth up here in the booth again. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
Man, earlier on this season, as you said, you swept the race weekend here at Cedar Lake. You do it again here tonight, but my goodness, talk about dominating fashion. Nearly 6 seconds plus between you and second place, and you were lapping cars coming to the checkered flag.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that was so much fun. Races are so much fun also whenever you run well, and yeah, those modifieds, you drive those cars so hard, and I've kind of had trouble transitioning to the late models because you have to drive them easier, but I've had a tendency once the track slicks off to figure out how to run that top side. And tonight the top side was a little bit tricky. I noticed a lot of the guys were running down low, so that's where I was just finding a lot of my speed at.
I mean, Grant, I asked Steve the same question, so I'm going to ask the same one to you. Obviously, 2 wins tonight. I mean, how do you keep this momentum up going to the next few tracks?
It's just the power of positivity, just keeping that mindset, thinking that, you do deserve to be up front and, and drive that way. But yeah, the good finishes definitely build momentum and keep that wave rolling.
Well, Grant, not much less to say except congratulations. Great performances here tonight for that 88 machine. Victory lane 2 times tonight, and certainly going to extend your points lead here in the late model series heading into next week at Kokomo. We're going to give you the opportunity here for any additional shout-outs you'd like to do.
Okay, yeah. Once again, I just want to first and foremost thank everybody that shows up here on Friday nights. That makes us such a great place to race. It's a great group of guys. We're just a bunch of friends, and I have a blast running with them. And then, I want to thank you guys for doing the broadcast. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to do that. I want to thank the owners, Terry Bauman, Sean Prime, and David Cannon. They do a great job, directing this league, and really enjoy running here with them. I'd like to thank my fellow admins, Brian Hogue and Brian Ordo. And then thank my friends and family and my girlfriend, Brittany.
That's Grant Wesley. He's in victory lane here tonight in the late model series race. Sweeps the weekend for the second time this season and continues to grow his points lead heading down the home stretch of season 5 of the RTG Dirt Late Model Series. Congratulations, Grant. Go enjoy those victories, and we look forward to seeing if you can close this thing out this season with 4 races left.
Appreciate it.
User was moved out of your
And
channel.
I want to go back and just kind of build off a question that you asked him there, Matt, about what are the plans down the stretch here for these final 4 races. I want to go back and look at some of his statistics at these tracks that we're coming to end out the season. We got Kokomo next week, Eldora the following week, then Fairbury and Knoxville. Well, at Kokomo, he was the winner there last season. At Eldora, he was runner-up in both of those events last year. Fairbury, he was the winner at last season, and they ran Knoxville earlier on this season. Yeah, he was the winner there. So I think that there's some tracks that he's going to be liking coming up here to close this thing out.
And that's going to be the tough part is, obviously, if he doesn't perform at those tracks, it looks bad on him of, hey, I mean, what happened? But obviously, if he does perform well at those tracks, I mean, that puts a lot of pressure on Robbins here, saying, hey, man, I mean, what's your plan for trying to win this thing? Because it does not look good for you.
Now, he had 20 points over Steve Robbins coming into tonight. Does it give him a little bit of breathing space, do you think? Or does he have to go into these final 4 races still, not necessarily with the must-win attitude, but the I have to be finishing up at the front attitude?
It easily gives you a little bit of breathing room. It makes you a lot more relaxed knowing that, hey, I mean, even if I have a bad finish here, maybe if I don't have the run I'm hoping for, I mean, I've got a little bit of leeway. I've got a little bit of backup here. So I'm not going to be kind of left high and dry. But that's not something you want to get comfortable with because, I mean, hey, if you start getting comfortable with, well, I didn't have a good run here and I didn't have a good run there, you'll slowly notice that lead will just kind of evaporate.
Well, Grant Wesley celebrating down in victory lane for the second time here tonight, as he is your winner in both the modified and late model series events here tonight at Cedar Lake Speedway. Next week, these drivers will be headed to Kokomo for the respective series. The points should be still close for the modified series. Late model series is going to probably be somewhat around the same. Grant's going to gain a couple of points advantage over Steve Robbins, who finished second place here tonight, but again, you never know what's going to happen in these final 4 races of the season. Been a good one here tonight. 2 really exciting 50-lap events. One of them ran completely clean and green. And Matt, appreciate you joining me in the booth here tonight for both of them.
Oh, I'm always happy for you holding the door open for me.
Thanks to everyone that tuned in tonight. We hope you guys enjoyed our coverage. This is going to do it for our week of broadcasting. We'll be back here on Sunday night as the Clutch Drop Cup Series continue on their playoffs. They just got their playoffs underway last week, so it'll be interesting to see who's going to be able to...
No, Clutch Drop is in race 5, I believe.
Oh, yes, they are. I'm thinking of an entirely different series. Never mind. Hey, it wouldn't be an FRN broadcast if it didn't make some kind of a derp. Anyway, gotta make Matt laugh. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in tonight. We hope you guys enjoyed our coverage here of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Dirt Series, and we'll see you guys next time as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.